Hey folks, welcome to the Royal Comedy Show. You won't believe who Henry wants to have kids with. Catherine mused that the old king knew everything, yet felt relieved as he seemed on her side. Under his orders, Catherine and Henry made babies daily their routine. Yet, they were a comedy, all for procreation. Dad was really dedicated to the matchmaking. Henry had to find a lover first for some fun, then dash back to Catherine. Unfortunately, the sight of a younger girl made Henry lose it in a flash. Catherine's married life resembled a roller coaster, full of ups and downs. Her political life was turbulent too. Henry's conquest of Italian land shocked Europe. The Grand Marshal suggested giving back some land to keep the peace, avoiding Italy's wrath, but the Pope's minister wasn't having it. The land won by the soldiers' blood was off limits, and since all the occupied zones were Catholic, as the head of the French Catholic, he could collect taxes and amass power. The Protestant ministers were against it, claiming Catholic influence shouldn't grow. The two factions squabbled like a soap opera, while the prince thought France didn't need any Italians. The king watched them all, feeling only the Grand Marshal cared for the country, while others schemed for profits after gaining the land. The Grand Marshal seemed to casually say, forget it, and even his son decided to back off just because Dad disliked Italians. The king huffed, told them to shut up, ordered the Grand Marshal to negotiate with Italy for land trade-off. If it exceeds a third, then it's back to war. The Pope's minister rejoiced, expecting influence to grow, while the Protestants looked taunted, striving to make the king abandon the land. He secretly approached the prince, misleading him into believing Henry was fighting for Catherine, that Italian. Tragically, all these soldiers were dying for absolutely nothing. If this continued, Henry's stature would surpass the prince's, just like the historical coup Baekju and Wu Gate in the Tang dynasty, a total déjà vu. He pleaded with the prince to persuade the king to return the land and squash Henry's popularity. He even suggested getting rid of Henry. Under the Protestant minister's influence, the prince started to waver. People assumed they loathed each other due to personality clashes, but it was really stemming from their shared dark history. Though they were quite close, the prince hesitated, torn between fighting for power or staying put. Henry's family squabbling felt like a city-wide game, arguing half the day over a tiny plot of farmland. The prince seemed to loathe it all, suppressing his distaste for Catherine. They squabbled over an Italian soldier and an unattractive woman. It was so ridiculous that even the king couldn't help but laugh. They became Europe's laughingstock. The prince ruthlessly blamed Catherine, thickening the air. He pretended the prince was drunk, saying he'd settle things later, practically racing out of the gossip zone. It was just getting worse for the king, with family drama airing out in public. The king ordered the prince to shut it one more word and he'd slice his throat. However, the prince was oblivious to the danger closing in and doubled down on insulting Catherine. Catherine couldn't take it anymore, fleeing the scene in tears. Her emotions were a roller coaster ride. This pushed the king over the edge. He slapped the prince, furious. My brother Henry won. Henry even married a talented wife who helped us seek victory with the Ottomans. What's this prince doing? Not to mention that neglected patch of farmland, he didn't even contribute a needle or thread for France. The king gave the prince a thorough lesson, ending all this humiliation. However, the king's beating didn't enlighten the prince, it just made him blame Catherine for his embarrassment. The prince planned to take Catherine out for good, but who knew the queen was hiding in the grass, not taking a break. She was fleeing for her life, having just taken her usual ride, only to find the forest unusually ominous today. In a flash, a mouse man appeared and yanked Catherine off her horse. The assassin was ready to give her quite the surprise. In a moment of desperation, Catherine grabbed a stick and knocked the assassin out cold. In a panic, Catherine darted everywhere and ended up hiding out until nightfall. Luckily, Henry eventually found her. Seeing her scared face felt like a first crush. Henry comforted her with a warm embrace, and Catherine finally started to calm down. After it happened, Henry accused the prince, blaming him for the Catherine assassination due to being beaten the day before. The prince casually denied sending the assassin, demanding proof. The Protestant ministers firmly refused to believe it. Surprisingly, the perceptive lord didn't help Catherine, knowing a brotherly tragedy couldn't be exposed, regardless of the truth. He supported the prince, and under scrutiny, Henry, who vowed to help Catherine, suddenly cowered. Once again, Henry disappointed Catherine, revealing he would never stand up for her. Catherine sought out the mysterious magician, asking if there was any way to get pregnant, and the magician replied. Her pregnancy chance had come, but depended on her affordability. He tossed the book to Catherine and retreated to his room. Catherine looked puzzled, then sought the tailor for clothes. Finding him out, she browsed the magician's book. She found it was a mushroom book. After a couple of pages, the tailor returned, and Catherine tossed it onto the table. Since the tailor had hitched a ride with the queen's crew, he was too busy for Catherine and told her to come back later. The next day, the prince and Henry competed. The prince seemed off, feeling his heart worsen and shouting for water. Catherine asked the tailor to serve water to the prince, but little did she know, after he drank, had collapsed shortly, and that became his last cup. Later, the doctor informed the king that the prince had died from heart problems due to overexertion, but the king didn't buy it. He suspected the Holy Roman Empire, but doctors firmly stated the prince was poison-free. Several ministers also said Italians excelled at poisoning, and Catherine's involvement in the assassination sensitized the prince's situation. It all pointed to Catherine as the one who poisoned the prince. Subsequently, the king ordered a palace search for the poisoner, vowing to chop them into millions of pieces. Catherine frantically returned, knowing the tailor served water to the prince before his death, undoubtedly the top suspect. As expected, a bunch of guards burst into Catherine's room, stating they were taking away the assassin tailor who poisoned the prince.